Hey, my name is Mark Myers, and this video is about editing. More specifically, re-editing, and even more specific than that, re-editing Indiana Jones 4 in the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I'm a big fan of Spielberg, represent. So I watched the film and I noticed there was a bunch of moments that just didn't work for me. It didn't feel like Indiana Jones film, so I was disappointed. Critically, it did pretty well at 78%, but the audience didn't agree. Major issues I have with this film are its tone. It's almost too comedic.
Hey, grab the rope! Grab the rope!
The visual effects, there's too much reliance on visual effects. And lighting. It's like everyone was just lit too well, too often. So I'm an editor and I'm also a little odd. So when the DVD came out for this film, I was like, I want to re-edit this film. Essentially, I'm wondering if this film would be slightly better or liked more if minor adjustments were made to the current existing cut of the film. I want to take out all those scenes that I didn't like to see if it makes it any better. In case I wasn't clear, I re-edited the film over 10 years ago, and I'm now going to look back at the changes I made. But I'm just going to jump right into it. I've got the edit in front of me. There's essentially 7 scenes. The first scene I'm going to analyze or look at is the introduction of Indiana Jones. So keep in mind, it was almost a decade since the last Indiana Jones film came out. So how Steven Spielberg was going to introduce Indy meant something. Let me just play how it actually went down. And I did a side-by-side comparison. On the left is my edit, and on the right is the actual film. And we can see where they're the same and where they differ. So just looking at the way the film was introduced is, so they take this guy out of the trunk, and who is he? We don't know. And then there's Indy's hat. So we all know what that is. But where did the other guy go? So there's a bit of a continuity issue as the other guy disappeared. It's taken a while. I know Spielberg's trying to build up some anticipation here, but a problem that I have with the scene, it's minor, but it takes about 30 or 40 seconds for this guy to get out of the car at 32 seconds. I didn't like a couple things about that scene. One, it showed a secondary character before Indiana Jones. Didn't think that worked. And 2, there's a continuity issue. The guy disappeared out of the scene. 3, I'm led to believe that this passenger's going to sit in the car for 40 seconds, waiting to get out of the car, yelling at the top of his lungs. So let me jump to my edit. I'll talk through what I did differently. We'll see if it is any better. So ultimately, I wanted to introduce Indy first. So they open the trunk. I cut to them throwing his hat out right away. Everyone rushes in. The issue of the other guy disappearing is no longer an issue. I kind of trimmed this cut a little bit when he stands up just because the original took a while. We kind of all know what's happening here. So this reduced the amount of time that this passenger was sitting in the passenger seat. Still a while. Now that this guy's yelling, this other no-namer comes out. It's like, okay.
Russians.
This ain't gonna be easy.
I tweaked this scene a little bit, made it a little tighter in my edit. I just took out some of their back and forth dialogue here. And although it's important because it's trying to establish backstory and that they've had adventures before.
Not as easy as it used to be.
Well, we've been through worse.
Yeah? When?
Flensburg, there was twice as many.
We were younger.
I still am young.
We had guns. Put your hands down, will you? You're embarrassing us.
Ultimately, the way I cut it was,
This ain't gonna be easy.
Not as easy as it used to be.
Well, we've been through worse.
Put your hands down, will you? You're embarrassing us.
I don't think I need to know the specifics of their old adventures. I just need to know that they have a history. So I cut that out, reduced it. Okay, going to the second scene, which is the fridge scene.
3, 2, 1.
For those who haven't seen this film, it's the 50s. In the 50s, there was a bunch of A-bomb tests, nuclear tests. So this sequence is about a nuclear test. So the issue with this scene overall is the believability of it. It's a far stretch to think that anyone could survive an A-bomb by going inside the fridge. Not only that, but surviving being sent 3 miles, tumbling inside this metal container. The part that really got me, and I feel like the audience on the day that I watched it, was when he flopped out of the fridge. Now we're hit with another comedic element, which is a callback to this prairie dog. Not needed. But it all leads up to this amazing shot of Harrison Ford in silhouette with a nuclear mushroom cloud in the background. I would have just left it for the trailer, personally. I'm not a fan when trailer shots aren't in the film, but so here's him getting into the fridge, gonna fast forward. And rather than see Indy flop out, I wanted to see what it was like to cut. So now as an audience, we're like, what happened? Then they have a little comedic moment. It's a bit more subtle where the brush goes a little south of the border and he pulls it up. For me, that little brush scene is as much of a comedic element that I need in that sequence. I don't need him flopping out, and I don't need that prairie dog, personally. Does that solve for how did he get out of that fridge? He would be stuck in there and die in there. So it doesn't really solve for that. So as an audience, we gotta maybe assume that somehow he was found. Maybe that's too much of a stretch, but for me, not seeing him flop out improved this scene, and you can agree or disagree. Let me know in the comments. Next scene. The sinkhole scene. Indy's love interest comes back in this film. I think it was from Indiana Jones. Was it 1?
Always knew someday you'd come walking back through my door.
So this sequence is they're trying to get away from the Soviet camp, but they get stuck in...
What is it, quicksand?
I'm calm.
No, it's a dry sand pit.
I'm sinking,
Quicksand
but I'm
is a
calm.
mix of sand, mud, and water, and depending on the viscosity, it's not as dangerous as people
Oh, for
sometimes
Pete's sake,
think.
Jones, we're not in school.
They're infusing too much comedy. There's a serious moment happening, so it's good to have some humor or some comedic elements, but it's almost too much. So I'm just gonna play out this sequence. They're stuck.
Don't just sit there.
Huh? For God's sake, man.
Go get help. Help. Help! 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 Go!
It's just too much. It's too much. So let me just get to it. Let me just get to my version.
Unless there's a
This is my cut.
void collapse.
I'll go get someone to pull you out.
Hawks, don't just sit there.
Help! 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 Go!
I just reduced the amount of helps that went back and forth. It didn't need to be so many. So Indy doesn't like snakes. We all know if we like Indiana Jones, we know he doesn't like snakes.
Grab it. Let's grab it, Indy. It's a rat snake.
This sequence was, again, just too comedic. So I just cut out little parts of this sequence to make it less kind of repetitive.
Maybe I can touch the
There
bottom.
is no bottom. Now grab it. Grab
No, I
it.
think I can feel
Plus, they're yelling at the top of their lungs while trying to hide and escape from the Soviet camp. So that's kind of foolish as well.
Grab the rope.
That grab the rope line.
Slimy.
It just, the tone is off. I couldn't fix that. Actually, I probably could have. I could have just... We're going to cut out this to here. So I'm just going to remove these like 6-7 seconds here. Delete this little cut of Indy. And I need to just backfill this.
It's a snake. What do you want me to call it? Hold tight. It's slimy.
There we go. And then just to smooth the audio a little bit, I'll just drag it under. Let's just see if this is helpful.
It's a snake. What do you want me to call it? Hold tight. It's slimy.
I think that made that scene better, so I'm happy about that. Okay, moving on to the next scene. The next scene is the fencing scene. What's happening here is Kate Blanchett is the leader of the Soviet bad guys. They're after this crystal skull, essentially an alien skull, and they're trying to fight over it. My issue with this scene is, again, the same stuff. Kind of believability and humor. Ultimately, if I watch this film and enter the world of Indiana Jones, I want to believe the world of Indiana Jones, as any audience member would. have comedic moments. They'll relieve some tension, but I don't want to see comedic moments in every single scene, almost everywhere at all times. A good example of it is when Shia LaBeouf could die fencing against Kate Blanchett. He could be stabbed or killed at any moment.
On your front foot! Repulse!
And she's giving him fencing lessons of where to put his feet. That's not working. Where Harrison Ford chose to look at his son, where is it? Let me back this up a bit. So they're fencing. It's cool. It's exciting. It's digital. Yeah. See, the cutaway to Indy smiling, I'm going to put in a different spot. So we'll see. The sequence is long too. It's like every sequence is almost a little too long. I'm fast forwarding. She gets the skull back. He gets cut. And now he's split between the two.
Like a young man, eager to begin, quick to finish. But disengage!
So the cars kind of split apart because Marion was just hit in the face. In the theater, I remember groaning at the fact that he was being hit in the groin. It felt like it was for an audience member that wasn't me, and maybe it was. Weird pose. So I'm going to pause it. I'm going to pause it here when he gets pulled up by the vines, just to keep it. That's for the next sequence we're going to talk about. As I mentioned, it's long. So any fight scene that's too long is too long. So I wanted to reduce the amount that they're fighting. I wanted to have the cutaway to Harrison Ford at the right moment. I wanted to reduce the amount that he's hit in the groin to 0. And let's see if this scene is any better. So fencing. I took out the line about his footwork. Right when he ducks under her swipe, I use the shot of Harrison being proud of his son for fighting so well. Now I know it feels like we're missing a line from the mother, but I don't think the line needed to be a comedic one about his foot placement. It could have been like, watch your left, look out, something. So right now, my edit starts to feel like it's missing a soundbite. But here it goes. She gets the skull back, cuts his face. Now the line.
Fight like a young man, eager to begin, quick to finish. But disengage!
I'm liking this. Oh, so now the cars get split apart. And it looks like he could get hit in the groin. But he kind of is from the back shot. But I removed all the direct hits and the comedic elements where he's like holding his crotch. By doing so, I sped up the amount of time it took Harrison Ford to react, which is more believable. So here he comes, bringing the cars together. So all this was ultimately the same. I don't know what I changed here. I'll say nothing. It looks like all the audio edits are the same here. Up until he gets brought up in the vines. Okay, so that was that driving fencing sequence. That brings us to the very, very, very next sequence, which is the Tarzan monkey swinging vine sequence. So let's look at that. So in the original, Shia gets pulled up into the trees. Pretty bad CG there on his legs, but not a big deal. I can't do CG, so congrats to them. So it's kind of cool, like all these monkeys up in the trees, and then we're brought back to them driving. So now we have two elements. We have Shia and this car chase, and we know that we will want them to converge. So it's about how do they converge. In the film, it shows Shia swinging. I think people laughed when they saw him swinging like Tarzan through the jungle. So that's going to be a shot that I'm removing. because you have computer graphics and you can put a car on the edge of a cliff, doesn't mean you should for a minute and a half of screen time. So this brings us back to Shia. He sees the car, and then we get this shot that I don't think sit well with me when I first saw it. Great shot for the trailer, but it's just unbelievable. Okay, so let's look at right until he comes. 3, 2, 1. Shia came to the rescue. Okay, so now let's see what I've done. So he sees the monkey. We're gonna see my cuts. You can see my cuts are just these audio cuts because all these are cut up by scene. So let's see if it works over here. So we see the monkeys, we see that they're swinging, so he does, and we get it. Cut. Okay, he's moving towards them. Now we get that they're gonna converge at some point. So this is the same. Let's just see a little edit point here. Let's see what happens. Okay. I think I just re-edited a little parts where she was coming in to hit them sooner. Now we get a sense he just landed, and then he sees the card, and then rather than show him swinging from the back, I just took that shot out. This guy hops out, and there's another edit point here.
Do svidaniya, Dr. Jones.
Do svidaniya, Dr. Jones. And then this edit is the same, and now Shia LaBeouf comes to the rescue. Still highly unbelievable. It's like not bloody likely, but I do think it's better by removing just even a couple of those shots of him swinging through the forest because they bothered me. And I just shortened this sequence just by a bit because, again, just because we can drive on the side of a cliff with CG for 2 minutes of a film, I don't think we need to. Moving on to the next scene, the ant hill sequence.
Wow!
So let's see the original film. They landed on an anthill, all these giant kind of killer ants, so they have to escape.
See also what? Big damn ants, go!
Big damn ants, as Harrison, Indiana says. So now they're all in a fight for their own lives. Okay, before I get into that, the problem I had with this ant sequence, 1, the fight sequence was too long, and 2, seeing the big bad Russian guy get swallowed up and brought into the anthill did not work. It took me out of the film. So I'm going to take it out of the film and see if it improves. To reduce their fight, I just tried to find a punch where it was similar. I just took a different shot. The original has Indy's ear being held, and this fight scene was extended. So all I did was take that shot, flip it horizontally so it fit in here just to speed it up. I took out 23 seconds of this fight scene. Fight scenes generally aren't realistic, especially when you just have 2 grown men punching each other with bare fists in the face repeatedly. It takes one of those punches to be knocked out cold. So seeing 23 seconds of it is excessive. So now you'll see. He goes to punch him, he swings around, I flop the image, the color's off, so I'd have to correct the color. It goes from a bit more orange to a bit blue, but little minor color correction there would fix that. So let me jump ahead. Look at how many punches to the face. Did I shorten this? Hopefully I shortened this. Okay, so here in the theater, I was like, oh wow, that's cool. Oh damn, they're going in his mouth. I don't think we need 2 shots of Indy, like this second one. Not necessary. This shot just didn't work. And seeing him brought into the ant hill and just this visual just was too comedic. So let's see what I did. Kicks him in the face. Please tell me I reduced the amount of times he gets punched. I should have. Let me try and fix that. I think that's too many times. So we'll go left and then a right. I just took out almost 3 seconds. Okay, let's see. Hits him in the legs, the guy's down, kicks him in the face, the guy gets up, smashes him on the head with the wood, 2 punches. That's it. I don't think it needed more than that. Plus we need the guy to still be conscious enough to scream. So if we... Anyway. That shot of the ants going in his mouth is freaky enough for the audience. I don't need to see him comedically dragged into the anthill. So I cut around that. I left the screams happening in the background as we see Cate Blanchett get saved from the rope. That improves that scene for me. Okay, better or worse, unknown. Okay, he gets eaten. They're running for their lives. And Marion had previously driven by the edge and saw the tree, apparently, and that the tree was going to be substantial enough to catch them as they drove off the cliff. It just felt too foolish and too perfect for them to jump off the cliff, land on a tree, perfectly land on the water so she can accelerate into the river. And then have this smug look at her. Just
that again.
Yes, dear.
It's like they're fighting for their lives, and she says, "Yes, dear." It didn't work. I can't solve that. They have to get from up top to down to the river, and there's no other way, given the footage that I have, to fix that scene. If you can't do it for real in like 1,000 tries or 1,000,000 tries, then I don't want the computer to solve for it in an Indiana Jones film. So let's see. All I did is, let's see what I did. She accelerates, goes off the cliff in the most unbelievable way. All I did here was reduce the weight at the end. It comes down and slides in. That's unbelievable as well, but hopefully it's better than this, where they come to a stop, she smiles at him, and then accelerates perfectly away. Too comedic. Get rid of it. Okay, this brings me to the last sequence. This is all kind of one big main sequence, but breaking it up. So now I'm getting to the waterfall sequence. For those that have seen the film and remember, we get a line from this guy.
3 times it drops.
3 times it drops.
Reverse! Quick reverse!
Okay. They're gonna go over the falls 3 times. That's one. Let's see. Okay. Maybe believable. Maybe. Not likely.
Way down.
He means by land. We came by land.
3 times it drops.
3 times it drops, first it says.
Talking about.
It's all coming together. 1, 2. Plus, they all look like different waterfalls as well. So now they're climbing back onto the boat after going over the waterfalls again, and those jagged glass from the windshield didn't decapitate someone. And now they're going over this one. 3. They fall out.
Through eyes at last I saw in tears.
Okay. Going over the waterfall once is a stretch, is likely death for one of them. That didn't work for me, seeing them fall 3 times, so I wanted try to figure out, could I take out that and imply that they went over 3 times? Would that work? So let's see. Okay. So here they go. You'll see my little edit points down here. Okay. He still needs to tell us.
3 times it dropped.
3 times it drops.
Reverse!
They get it, right? 3 times it drops. We don't need the explanation afterwards. We see one. We actually see a second one, so we get a sense that there's going to be 3 repetitive. So I just took all the edits and kind of blended them into one fall, and you get a sense like 1, 2, and that was probably the 3rd. Now, boat's overturned. We don't see everybody. These guys survived. Oh, they survived. Where's Marion? Oh, there she is. Cool. I guess they all survived. And this scene where Marion's laughing, holding the steering wheel,
At last I saw in tears.
is crazy.
Vision reappears.
I didn't love it, so I just reduced it slightly. Okay, so those are my 7 fixes to 7 different sequences in this film. There are others, but in general, those are the ones that kind of stood out while I was sitting in the theater. So let me know, did this improve the film? Did it make it worse? I think it would be hard to make it worse. I could be wrong. It's subjective. I like to think that this is an improved version of the film. If I were guessing, this would probably land at a 75 or 78 on the audience score with those few scenes removed. But who knows? We'll never know. But overall, I think this is a good experiment where taking out the things that don't work improve the end product. It's pretty basic, but that's it. Hopefully you found this interesting. Thanks.